So I'm here with Brendan O'Brien, and he's been involved in constellations for about 20 years. And so you're from?
I'm from Cork in Ireland. I was born in Limerick in Ireland. My family is from the west coast of Clare, overlooking the Atlantic. And yeah, and I like being Irish, and I like my country and my people.
So the first thing, like a lot of constellators and people who work in the field have in common, is that they often have a hard time explaining the work, like what constellations is about. So if there would be one thing you would say, like, okay, this is for me constellations, or this is what it means to me, I would be curious to hear.
I suppose for me, I would think first of all of myself as part of a family over generations. And I think people have a really good understanding of that when it's well presented. I think everybody has some knowledge of me as part of a family, my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents. For me as well, I often explain it through songs and where we came from, because certainly in Ireland singing is part of the tradition, and that helps people as well. So in terms of explaining, sometimes I give talks to people just to explain. I do presentations at conferences every now and then, just to give an idea of the field. Yeah.
And so talking about the field of, like, the for a lot of people who first get to know constellations work, it seems like that there's like one sort of community of constellators and coaches, trainers, and so how do you feel connected to that wider field?
I suppose at one level I think of myself, I do my own work in Ireland. I do it quietly and gently, and I have tried to trust our own unfolding in that. I have been connected internationally. I have been on the board of ISCA. I have been at the intensive in Burnreed for a long time, and here in Cochil. And so I suppose through that, I know a lot of the people involved internationally. And then when I go back to my training, I trained first with the Hellinger Institute of Britain. So we had a lot of the first generation facilitators, Judith Hemming, Richard Wallstein, Jutta ten Herkel. Then I trained with Vivian Broughton in England, and what I liked there was she brought in people like Albrecht Maher, Ursula Franke, and others. Franz Rupert, I followed him for a long time. So I suppose in my development, I like to think I followed different people and learned from all of them, all the time trying to develop my own particular style. And for me, that also has been a journey, because I have a realization that I'm Irish, and it's literally, I do the constellations in my own Irish way. We take sometimes more time at telling the story, at attunement, at just teasing out what's happening. And it has worked for me. So yeah, so in terms of your question and the international community, I know a lot of the people involved in the work.
And so if there would be one invitation you could make to, like, other constellators maybe, like, if you look at the field, it has been around for like a few decades, so to say, and like, what would you say, like, okay, what movement do you see that we could maybe support?
I think the most important thing is for anybody that's involved in the work to work very hard at their own self-reflection, at their own training, at their qualifications, at their style of working, because this is a deeply spiritual journey. It's not something that should be taken lightly. I don't think people should go out there very lightly and quickly start doing constellations. I'm really pleased myself. I took the best part of 10 years training before I actually started facilitating constellations. And I was a psychotherapist since 2001. I got my qualification in psychotherapy. I'm an accredited psychotherapist. But the point I'm making really is, this is a deeply spiritual journey, and we have a duty to those we work with, that our quality of work is very, very high, that there's a really good standard, that we know what we're about, that we're under supervision. So that would be the biggest request I would have. I also like that there are young people coming into the field, but again to them I would be saying, make sure you do your own personal journey. It's so important, your own personal development, your own presence, your own ability to be present to yourself and the other in the moment, to be present to the field. And all of those things I think are incredibly important.
And so if there's one thing you're very particularly excited about, like the field is evolving. I was once involved in a poem someone wrote, and it's called like Evolving Anyways. And so like, what do you see, what kind of trend do you see which you get actually particularly excited about, that you say like, it's really like, I like that direction we're taking, one of them?
I'm not sure, because there are so many directions.
Yeah,
so even when you tell me that, I think Hunter Bowman spoke to us yesterday about the dark side of constellation work. So if you like, what I'm excited about is the unfolding of the work is actually the unfolding of our humanity. This is us in our humanity. And we struggle as constellators, facilitators, whatever word we choose to use. But it's an unfolding journey, and every part of it, and in every country, it does its own unfolding. Sometimes there's competition, sometimes there are egos, and I think somewhere, what I do like to see younger people coming into the work. I do like that there's that spirituality that seems to touch, and when it's that spirituality in the broadest sense, because it's tied to our deepest humanity. And I think, as I watch even people here at the intensive, people are trying to connect with themselves, with their humanity, and I think constellation work offers that in a wonderful, wonderful way.
Right. So, thanks, Brendan.
Okay.
We're done.
Do you want to say anything about suicide?
Do you want?
I do.
Okay, good.
Because I just think it's important.
Yeah.
So, for the last 5 years, I have been doing research on suicide using a family constellations lens. I didn't know when I started. In fact, I did, but I didn't. At a soulful level, I knew. But my aunt had taken her own life in America when I was a boy, but I was never told. But I was asked about 3 years ago, and I said, I rang my sister, an older sister, that night, and I said, I asked, had my aunt taken her own life, and she said she had. I have worked with a lot of young people who have taken their own lives. So I have run about 10 workshops for people particularly bereaved by suicide and with suicidal intent. I have written a thesis on suicide, trauma and family constellations, and I'm hoping to bring out a book on it. Excuse me, I hope I'll be finished it this year. But it's been a really interesting journey, and even this week we did some work around it. I did a presentation on it here in Burnreed, and I think again it's part of our exploration of this wonderful human story. And I think the more, if we get insight into suicide, we will get insight into mental health, we will get insight into life, I suppose, really. And I'm excited by that. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Brandon.
I don't know how that will come up, but anyway, listen, thank you.
Thank you.